Renuka Devi is an assistant professor at the Department of Statistics, Presidency College, Chennai. Mrs. R. Renuka Devi has done her MPhil from Madras Christian College. She has 23 years of teaching experience and has published one research paper. She has also presented, participated, and organized conferences and workshops on statistics-related subjects.
Welcome to UGC lecture series on mathematical sciences. We are going to learn today sample survey and design of experiments. In that, I am going to cover the topics on sample survey. So, the contents are definition of population and sample, complete enumeration versus sampling, sampling process, need for sampling, essentials of sampling, principal steps in sample survey, sampling and non-sampling errors, and the last is sampling methods. Before going into detail, first we will learn what is actually the definition of sample survey. In statistics, sample survey is the process of selecting a sample of elements from a population to estimate the characteristics of the whole population. A survey that measures the entire population is called census. Next, we are going to learn some of the key terms that we often use in the theory of sample survey. The first such term is population. So, the population is actually defined as the group of individuals under study. It can also be called universe. It is an aggregate of objects, animate or inanimate, under study. The population can be finite or infinite. In finite population, the number of units are determinable. For example, the number of students in a university in Chennai, and the infinite population on the other hand, we cannot determine the number of elements in the population. For example, the number of stars in the sky, but for any practical purpose, if the population is considered to be very large, very difficult to analyze, then it can be considered as infinite population. One such example is number of leaves in a tree. And here we have some more examples for population: automobiles with 4 wheels, wages of workers working in sugar factory in India, number of literates in a district. And now we will see how to study about population. So, generally we use two techniques or two methods to study about the population. The first method is census, selecting a sample. The second one. Now, see what is census. Census, otherwise called a complete enumeration, is a study of every unit, everyone or everything in a population. Actually, this is not commonly used in a practice because the time, effort and money needed for this complete enumeration is very large. So, we use another alternate, that is taking a sample from the population, and before that we see what is actually sample mean. It is a finite subset of individuals in a population. It is also called subjects or respondents of the study. Now, taking a sample from the population and analyzing the population based on the sample units is actually the sampling process. Now, here we see what is actually the sampling process mean. The process of sampling involving 3 elements. First one, selecting the sample, then collecting the information based on the sample, then making an inference about the population based on the information about the sample. These 3 steps are interrelated and we cannot isolate from one another. And here we have some examples. A doctor examines few drops of blood and draws conclusion about the blood constitution of the whole body. This is actually a sampling process. So, taking a sample, drops of blood is nothing but a sample. Taking a sample, analyzing the blood sample is nothing but the second step of the sampling process, that is collecting the information, and then coming to a conclusion about the blood constitution of the whole body is nothing but the third element, that is making an inference about population. So, we have some more examples. A teacher may put a question to 1 or 2 students and find out whether the class as a whole is following the lesson. In fact, we can say there is hardly any field where the sampling technique is not used. Now, what is the purpose of sampling? There is need for sampling. As we know, the time, money, effort taken to study about the population, especially if the population is infinite, then we cannot study the entire population, that is complete enumeration of the entire population becomes impracticable. So, in that stage we take the help of sampling or we go for sampling. There may be another situation even when the units are finite, but if the units are of destructive nature we mean given some examples here, inspection of crackers and explosive materials, that is during the course of inspection if the units will get destroyed, then we can say that the units of the population are of destructive nature. Even when the units are countable or number of units is determinable, the complete enumeration is not advisable, is not required. So, we go for sampling, we take the help for sampling. And I can give you another simple practical example, that is checking the breaking strength of a chalk piece. So, the box of chalk pieces contains hardly 100 to 200 chalk pieces. So, here the population is finite, countable, but then when we check the quality of the chalk pieces, that is breaking strength, in the course of inspection, at the end of the inspection all the chalk pieces will be broken. So, that situation is not desirable by the customer as well as the seller. So, in that case we take the help for sampling. Now, here I have two more reasons why we should go for sampling, that is administrative and financial constraints that also restricts data collection, and time factor restricts our data collection. Now, having decided the sampling technique should be adopted, now what we have to do, what is the requirement actually for sampling. So, that is given as essentials of sampling. You have 4 essentials. The first one, representativeness, adequacy, independence, homogeneity. Now, we will discuss all these essentials one by one. Representativeness, a sample should be selected that it truly represents the universe or population, because it is a small portion of the population. Sample is nothing but a small subset or small part of the population. It should truly represent the population, because we draw the conclusion about the population based on the samples only. So, if it does not represent the population, then the information we may draw or the conclusion whatever we get will be misleading. So, we should be very careful about taking a sample, and we have to check whether it truly represents the population. And the next essential is adequacy, that is sample size should be adequate, otherwise it may not represent the characteristics of the population. So, by this what I mean is the number of units in the sample should be adequate. See, for example, if the population consists of say 10,000 units, and if you are going to take a sample of 50 or 100 or say 150 units, then whatever information we draw, that will not be a appropriate one, because the sample size is very small. So, in that case generally what we follow is 10% of the population is considered as the sample size. So, in this example, if the population size is 10,000, say 10% of the population will be 1000 will be the sample size. So, the sample size should be an adequate. Next essential is independence. All items of the sample should be selected independent of one another. That is, if you are going to draw 100 units from the population, then taking 5th and 10th unit is independent of taking other units from the population. Homogeneity. By homogeneity we mean that there is no difference in the nature of the units of both population and sample. Now, the role of sampling theory is to make sampling more efficient at the lowest cost possible, and it also helps to develop methods of estimation. So, this topic, that is method of estimation, helps us to draw the conclusion or to study about the characteristic of the population. Now, let us see what are the principal steps in organizing or conducting a sample survey. So, there are 4 steps in organizing a survey, sample survey. First one, objectives of the survey, then population to be sampled, data to be collected, and the last step in conducting a sample survey is the degree of precision required. So, we will discuss in detail the first principal step, objective of the survey. So, this is supposed to be the first and foremost step in a sample survey, because based on this objective of the survey only we are going to infer about the population. So, it has to be identified and well defined. So, a clear statement of the objective is always most helpful for conducting sample survey. The second important step is the population. So, we have two types of population, sampled population and target population. Sampled population is nothing but the population from which we are going to take a sample, and the target population is the population about which we are going to study. And third principal step is the data. Based on the objective, we have to collect the data. So, all the data should be relevant to the purpose of the survey. No essential data are omitted, and if the survey is based on the questionnaire, then we have to be very careful in preparing the questionnaire, because an overlong questionnaire should be avoided as it lowers the quality of answers and sample survey as well. And the next step, the degree of precision decide, and the results of sample survey also subject to uncertainty. So, as we know, it is not a complete study, it is a part of the population is being considered and studied. So, definitely there will be uncertainty about the results. So, we should be very careful about the uncertainty. It has to be reduced by taking large samples. And so, here also we should be very careful, because again taking a large sample leads to putting extra effort, money and time. So, according to the degree of precision decide, we have to reduce the uncertainty by taking the by increasing the size of the samples. So, having decided that we are going to take a sample from the population, now how to take a sample? Given in two steps, that is, you have to frame the, you have to consider the sampling frame. Before selecting the sample, the population must be divided into parts called sampling units, and the construction of list of such sampling units is called sampling frame. And we have some examples here. In sampling agricultural crop, the unit might be a field. So, this is a statistical unit, that is sampling unit, a farm or an area of land. In population of light bulbs, the sampling unit will be a single light bulb. And in third example, in sampling the people in a town, the unit might be an individual person, the member of the family, or all persons living in a same city block. This is according to the purpose of sampling survey. And advantages. So, we have many advantages of taking sampling over census. So, naturally it will reduce and it will increase the speed of the study, because a part of the population is considered and studied, and if the information is required very urgently, then we can immediately go for a sample instead of taking all the units in the population. So, it reduces cost and it increases the speed. These are the two main important advantages of sampling over complete census or the population study, and it has a greater scope and greater accuracy. This is because greater scope because of lack of highly trained personnel or specialized equipments to obtain the data in complete census, and greater accuracy because of personnel of higher quality and careful supervision is being taken in the field work. Now, what are the types of sample survey? So, it is given under the classification of sample survey. We can classify the sample survey into two types, the descriptive sample survey and analytical sample survey. Now, we will see what is descriptive sample survey. In descriptive sample survey, the objective is to obtain certain information about large groups, that is it, there is no comparison is made between the groups, simply obtain the information about the groups. So, here we have example, the number of men, women and children who view a television program, that is we will be having total number of men and total number of women, total number of children, in addition the total number of population who view a television program, that comprises of number of men, women and children. So, this is very simple, the purpose is very simple, just to obtain the information. And whereas in analytical survey the comparisons are made between different subgroups of population. So, here the different subgroups of population, here population is people of a country or in a city or in a town, the subgroups are number of men, women and children. Okay. So, that is example to discover whether the differences exist among men, women and children, and to verify the hypothesis about reasons for these differences. So, this is the analytical survey, and many surveys provide data that serve both the purposes, but in the study of human behavior and health we could see a large number of analytical surveys. Now, we know that only a part of the population is being considered and studied, complete study is not made. We are sure of producing error, that is because of taking a sample. So, it is called sampling errors. We have classified the sampling errors also and the sources also. The sources of error in samples, we have 3 different types: errors due to failure to measure some of the units in the chosen sample. So, that is also termed as non-response error. This may occur by oversight or with human populations because of failure to locate same individual or their refusal to answer the question. And the second error is the error of measurement on a unit. The measuring device may be biased or imprecise, and with human populations the respondents may not produce accurate information or they give biased answers. And the third type of error is errors introduced in editing, coding and tabulating the results. This can be occurred at any stage of the census and the sample. And having found that there are errors due to sampling process called sampling errors, and we have to modify or we have to take necessary steps to reduce the sampling error. So, these sources of errors necessitate a modification in the theory of sampling, and these modification has to provide guidelines about the allocation of resources between the reduction of sampling errors and the reduction of other errors, so that to make our study more effective. We have some methods of reducing sampling error. We know it should be minimized, it cannot be eliminated or cannot be eradicated, because sampling, taking a sample from the population definitely will produce some error. So, we have to reduce, we have to minimize the error so as to attain the desired accuracy. This can be usually done by increasing the sample sizes. The sampling error usually decreases with increase in sample sizes. So, increase in sample size also increase in the accuracy of the sample, and we have another type of error that is not because of sampling. So, all such error like the third type, that is error introduced in editing, coding and tabulating the results, this comes under non-sampling error. So, the non-sampling errors are unavoidable, as I mentioned, in census and surveys. These types of error can occur at each and every stage of planning and execution of the census. So, the data collected from sampling survey can have both sampling and non-sampling errors. And let us see what are the sources of non-sampling error. As in the case of sampling error, inappropriate statistical unit, we have some 5 or 6 sources. The first one, inappropriate statistical unit, inaccurate statistical frame. We have already seen what is a statistical frame. Inaccurate or inappropriate methods of interview, poorly designed survey questionnaire, lack of trained and experienced investigators. And some more sources of non-sampling errors: errors due to non-response, errors in data processing operations such as coding, printing, verification and so on, errors in estimation methodology. We have seen already the role of sampling survey is to develop estimation methods to study about the population parameters or population characteristics. So, errors in the estimation methodology is considered now the sources of non-sampling error and errors committed during presentation and printing of results. And we have now clear idea about the sampling, non-sampling errors, sampling errors, and what is a sample, what is a population. Now, how to take a sample? We have two different methods, sampling methods under probability sampling and non-probability sampling methods. So, we will see the first category, probability sampling. In this method, the probability is fixed and the opportunity is known for each unit in the population of being included in the sample. That is, for each and every unit in the population, we know what is the chance of being included in the sample. So, we can say for sure that the results generated by probability sampling methods are free from bias. And it is also possible to evaluate the relative efficiency, that is, we can compare always the methods under probability sampling in order to get the efficiency, because we have considered probability for each unit in the population to be included in the sample. And we have different methods under probability sampling. The first one, simple random sampling, stratified random sampling, systematic random sampling and cluster sampling. We will see all the four methods in detail. The first one, simple random sampling. So, as the name says, simple random sampling, it is a very simple method, easy to take a sample from the population using this random sampling method. So, here each and every unit of the population has an equal chance of being included in the sample. So, as I mentioned already, since the population units are already assigned a probability or chance of being included, no personal bias of the investigator can influence the selection. Selection of the items of the sample is independent. And there are two methods available to take a random sample by the simple random sampling method. The first method is lottery method and the second one table of random numbers. By following any one of these methods, we can ensure randomness of the selection. And lottery method, under this method all the items of the population are numbered or named on separate slips of papers of identical shapes and size. This is very important, because all the slips of the paper should be of the same color, size and shapes. These slips are folded uniformly and mixed in a container. A blindfold selection is then made. The number on the slips will become a sample unit and this will constitute the number of units will constitute the desired sample size. So, this is the easiest method, but it is not practical, because if the population consists of very large units, then it is not possible to write each and every unit on a slip, individual slip. It will become cumbersome, the work will become difficult. So, this is not preferable. So, we have an alternate method, that is called table of random numbers. So, using the table of random numbers, we pick a unit from the population to constitute a sample. So, the random numbers are generally obtained by some mechanism, which when repeated a large number of items ensures approximately equal frequencies for the numbers from 0 to 9. Several standard tables of random numbers are available, but among which we have Tippett's table of random numbers, which is the most popularly used in practice. And the next type of sampling is stratified random sampling. This is better than the first method, simple random sampling. This is definitely efficient method than simple random sampling. So, the procedure goes this: the population is subdivided into groups called strata, which are mutually exclusive and include all items in the sample. So, for example, if you want to study the cost of living of a particular city, say for example Chennai, then first we can divide the whole city into zones or wards. So, that zones or wards can make a group called strata. This is actually plural, singular term is stratum. Then taking a sample from each of the groups, the simple random sample is then chosen independently from each group. What is the basis of stratification? Now we know we have to divide the population into groups and we have to take a sample from each group. Now how many groups should be there? Now in the population we have to decide about the groups and the number of samples. So that is given as a basis of stratification. Strata should be constructed in a way that which will minimize the differences among sampling units within strata and maximizes differences among strata. As I mentioned in the example, the whole city, if we want to study the cost of living of people in a city, say example Chennai, then it should be divided into zones or wards, so that the people in a ward or zone will have the same pattern of consumption than between the zones or wards. And about the number of strata, usually more than 6 strata may be desirable to make the design effective. And the sample size within strata, this is very important. We can either use proportional and disproportional allocation of samples to each stratum. So these are the two techniques, proportional size, sample size and disproportional sample size. In proportional allocation, the sample size in each stratum is proportional to its weight, and in disproportional allocation the different strata are sampled at different rates. We will see this through an example. See here, if the population is divided into 5 groups and their respective sizes being 10, 15, 20, 30 and 25% of the population. So these are the weights. So in proportional allocation, the sample sizes in each stratum is proportional to its weight, and here the weights are given as 10, 15, 20, 30 and 25% of the population, and a sample of 5000 units is drawn. So sample size is 5000. So you can divide the population into 5 subgroups called stratum. So here stratum 1, what is the weight given here? 10% of 5000, that is 500. Stratum 2, the weightage is being given as 15. So 15% of 5000 is 750, and stratum 3, 4, 5 respectively we have 1000, 1500, 1250. So here this constitute the sample. So in sample we have 500 units from the first stratum, 750 units from the second stratum, 1000, 1500, 1250 from the stratum 3, 4 and 5. I can give you now summary of our discussion. So now we have seen population and sample, census and sampling, need for sampling, essentials of sampling. Now how to organize the sample survey and how to classify the sample survey, and what are the errors, different types of errors in conducting a sample, and other than sampling error we also seen non-sampling errors, and what are the methods can be used to take a sample from the population. And we can check our understanding by answering through simple questions. The questions are: define sampling, sampling error, what are the sources of sampling error, explain the principles involved in sampling surveys, mention the advantages of sampling survey, what are the different methods of sampling, and what is stratified random sampling. Thank you for listening the UGC lecture series on mathematical sciences.